Women in Linux met. We met through Bit, actually at an OSCON conference in Austin, and we were all standing around talking. It was a controversial talk. I think if you know Watson, it's probably going to always be controversial and pushing a button. So you know who you're dealing with there. So we were all having a talk, and afterwards I met him in Bit, and we just kind of conversed from there, and just been conversing back and forth. We appreciate the support from Vulk. We appreciate the support from Josh and Watson on this one. Just trying to get the word out there about various technologies and various entries into tech. I don't think this will be an introductory talk, but at least you know it exists. And at least you know it's something that you can obtain a skill, obtain some skills and work towards. So that's the reason for Women in Linux Summit, and that's the reason for this talk. So I'm going to turn, and not to mention Josh, thank you as well too, but I'm going to turn this over to you both so you can run away with it, and I'll be spinning up instances on the back end.
So I guess I'll actually just go ahead and start. This talk is about trying to create a pusher client, and it's about real-time applications. So the whole movement from legacy applications to having some type of real-time component. So whether it be you have an idea about an app, or you have an application that has maybe maps or something like that, and there's some type of communication between the users, having that happen at real time ends up being a non-trivial problem. As some background for myself, I'm a developer. I've been developing programming for 25 years plus now. I've worked on a lot of different types of systems, different horizontals and verticals, and there's always one interesting thing where there's for performance, where a threshold is crossed, where you have to rewrite an application. And that's kind of where a lot of people fall short, or beginners fall short, where they'll start out an app, and there might be some better architectures that are out there, but they're just not familiar, or they may not be familiar with the types of problems that they're going to be facing. And so what ends up happening is they'll choose a very productive method that might get them customers and all that, but they're going to have a rewrite at some point. Real-time messaging is one of those. I worked on a system, for one example, a system that was basically an Uber clone before Uber, or right around when Uber was coming out. And if you can imagine some type of taxi service or rideshare service where everybody is pinging everyone else, it works fine up until a certain point, and then one day the whole city wakes up, turns on your app to try to get their rideshare, and your system goes down. So to try to make that a little bit more explicit, let's see here. So one of the options for doing real-time messaging is Pusher, and we're going to make a Pusher clone today. So right out of the box, a lot of people within the Rails community, or really any community, they reach for Pusher because it's really a cut and paste of some JavaScript, and you're off and going. So you can see right here, if you can see my screen, there's 100 max connections at the same time. So that's only really 100 users that can be using your system, but that's free. But then you've got the startup version, you got 500 users, then you got $99 a month, 2,000, and the 300 for 5,000, and the 400 or the $500 at 10,000, and then you've got them saying, okay, well, you need more than 10,000, go ahead and call us. So it's going to be more than $500 a month, right? So 10,000 users on your application, well, you're definitely making money, but you could be falling over anytime soon. But Pusher is a good way to get going, a drop-in like real-time messaging component. And it uses WebSockets in order to do that. And you can use that on a regular iPhone app, Android, or responsive web app. It works on all three. It uses WebSockets. All right. So if you want to go, like I was saying, if you want to go over 10,000 users, you're kind of stuck. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my webcam so I can have a full screen here. So now, as far as connections, like what I just told you, if you want to try to have something that serves the country instead of, I mean, 10,000 users won't even serve your city. But if you want to serve a city or a country or something, you're going to have some kind of millions of connections, similar to what WhatsApp does or whatever. And the framework that I'm going to be showing you, not so much Phoenix, but Erlang behind the scenes is what like WhatsApp does. So massive amounts of connections. And then another thing on top of this, if you search frameworks that tout a lot of performance, a lot of reliability, hits per second, and all that stuff, you should always look for benchmarks and then the hardware that they use for those benchmarks. Otherwise, you're going to have people out there, like programmers just believe that they can build anything. So if you say, yeah, I want to have something that can handle the city or the country, they're going to say, yeah, oh yeah, 2 million connections, that's no problem. But I challenge you to go out there and find literally a benchmark where, you know, there's some code you can download and you can do 2 million. Now at this point, there's Discord, which handles over 5 million connections at the same time on this kind of hardware. So right now, you can do 2 million connections on 64 gigabit, and they're using DigitalOcean, right? So here on DigitalOcean, you can see that the 64 gigabit is $640 a month. So for 2 million connections, right, for the price of what Pusher does at $500 a month with 10,000 connections, you can do 2 million connections. So you can actually have something that scales. And then also there's some people who are uncomfortable with having their messages going to a third-party source like Pusher or whatever. So for security reasons, they want to build stuff in-house, those types of things. So that's the general overview. Now, I'm going to be going very fast. I don't know if you guys have your IPs already, but I'm going to go ahead and start here. Everything for this whole training session, there's 5 lessons, and everything is on GitHub under Vulk. Elixir Pusher Clone Training should be in the booth, so you can get at that if you're just going to watch me. You have those links that I brought up here. You've got prerequisites here, so if you want to build your own DigitalOcean box, which the boxes that you're going to be given already have all of this stuff set up. I have all the instructions here for installing Node, Ruby, RVM, and Rails for our legacy app, and then Erlang, and then Elixir, and then Phoenix. All that stuff's already installed, but if you want to follow those instructions, you can. If you are getting into your boxes now, what you want to do is go ahead and, if you're following along, just go ahead and start tmux before you do anything else so that Josh can get in. Send a message to Josh in the chat, in the GoToMeeting chat, and give him your IP, and he can go ahead and assist you while you're doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and start lesson 1 here. Can everyone see my screen still?
I can see your screen, and just a quick question: does everyone have a box? I'm shooting out boxes now. I think I sent them over to Josh, and he's distributing them, and I'm creating a new one now for the person that just joined. So please let us know if you don't have a box.
All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make a directory. You can just call yours training, and I'm going to go into that directory. I'm going to pull down the source. I'm going to go into my tmux. I have set up different windows for the Elixir or the Phoenix server, and then also the Ruby server, and then place where I can type in commands, that type of thing. Go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. All right, so I'm going to be using them. Let's see here. All right. Actually, we want to go ahead and do a git clone. So this GitHub Vulk Elixir pusher clone, that's what you want to do. Pull down everything. All right. And so now I have all of the lessons here in this README. Right. So I'm going to be following along, which is what you see on GitHub, and just going down these steps. And I'm going to be going pretty fast. The first lesson 1 is nothing but setting up the box, making sure Node works, all this stuff like that. So it's good to get into this because this is where a lot of people get confused or hung up. So I'm connected to Node here. I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and use, it's already set up, but I'm going to go ahead and use Node 6.0. If you have any issues, any weird issues with running NVM on your box, go ahead and copy these 3 lines right here and paste them into your command line. And then NVM should start working. RVM is the Ruby manager. I'm going to go ahead and see if I'm with RVM. So that's working, but I'm going to go ahead and connect to the right Ruby version, make sure that that's all good. So we're there. Now I'm going to go ahead and see if the right Rails version is there. That's going to be Rails 4.2.5. We're good there. Now we've got curl, which is our Erlang manager. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is what you want to do is this command. If you're not set up yet, 18.0, 18.0, you want to do this command and get everything installed like it says on step 6. I'm going to go ahead and do that same thing. And while this is installing Erlang, pulling it down, and then the next step was we activate Erlang. All right, so activating Erlang is going to be running the activate command, which is in this 18.0 directory. You'll want to see here. All right. I'm going to do a dot and then 18.0. Now we've got Erlang, Erl-V. It's going to tell us that Erlang OTP 18.0, that's the one that we need. I'm going to go to Control C, A, get out of there. And now I'm going to use KIX, right, to pick the proper version of the Elixir. And I think Taylor's on the line. Taylor created KIX, the Elixir manager. So shout out to him. Thanks for doing that for us. So we went ahead and now we're connected to Elixir. We're good here. So we want to do a test. Here's Elixir. 1 plus 1. Right, 2. We're in Elixir. That's the command line, so we know we're working. Control C to get out of the REPL for Elixir. And now we're off to lesson 2. All right, and I'm going to start a timer. And what I'm going to do is, because we're going to be going really fast, I'm going to stop every 20 minutes or so for questions. And we should get everybody caught up or what have you. So right now I'm going to create the Rails legacy app that will require some type of real-time messaging. So Rails new PusherLite demo, it needs to be named exactly like what it is there. I would suggest copying and pasting. I'm going to do a lot of copy and pasting here because we don't have that much time here. So now we created PusherLite. I'm going to go up here, refresh, and I have this PusherLite directory structure. Now here's all our lessons. I'm going to go ahead and go in here, and you can see we've got a PusherLite with all the answers there. So first thing we want to do is get our gem file going so that it can handle all the things that we want. Let's see here. So this gem file here, this is really what we want. We want to go ahead and have all of the latest gems that we need for doing advanced JavaScript and all these other things that we need in order to handle our messaging. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to go back over here to the README, and we're going to do this bundle update here. So we were having some issues with the build boxes. So we have to do this other command that you normally wouldn't have to do, this rake Rails update bin. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And then click A for overwrite. So that's remaking all of our bin files. Normally we wouldn't have to do that, but I think we were installing things under the wrong user or something like that. So it should be good here. Now we're getting into our first piece of code. So under the app, I'm going to go ahead and make a, this is normally not how you would create a model in Ruby, but we're making a special plain old Ruby object that is, that's how we're going to use it. So empty here, I'm going to pull in the code for that. Under app models, we got the pusher event. I'm going to share this here, split screen. So what this does is create basically a plain old Ruby object with name message broadcast. This is what we're going to be our workhorse for our messaging. Now let's go down and we're going to start making the landing page. So do some Rails commands, Rails G controller home. All right, so we did our generation of the home page. Let's go ahead and modify that thing. So that's going to be under controllers in our directory. Here we go, home controller should be empty. Let's go ahead and grab code that we want for that. Here we go here. So what we're going to do is make an empty record of our pusher event that we just made earlier. And that's what's going to be sent on to the front end. That's a place for them to put in messages. Now let's go ahead and Rails G controller event. So this is going to receive the post from the front end. So open this up. I'm going to refresh over here. Open the events controller. All right. Now we got the event parameters. So this here is a post. It's going to receive and it's going to return back some generic JSON because we just want to know that we can post from the front end, and that's it for now. And now let's do some styling because we don't like ugly things, right? So under views, layouts, we've got this generic styling that comes with Rails. We can't have that, so come over here, layouts, and let's just grab this code and bring it on over. All right. So that's that styling. We've got some more. We've got the form that we need to create. Will be under, I'm going to go ahead and create a file manually. So it's going to be index.html. html.erb under home. Let's bring that over and discuss it. So this is just the form. This is how you make forms in Rails. So this is what's going to come up on the screen. It has your text box and stuff like that. Okay, so now we want something that just, let's go ahead and make something that focuses to the right field when the screen comes up. And this is mostly styling things. All right, close my window. All right, copy that over, so we're good there. And let's get rid of some of the generic styling things. So in the style sheets, I'm gonna delete all of these for step 8, and I'm gonna delete some of this generic JavaScript too. And now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to make some new style sheets. Pure CSS. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. Actually, let's close this thing. We got pure. This is, and then we've got one more styling file, the application CSS. Let's go ahead and put that in there. SCSS. We're using SAS. A lot of styling. All right. So now we've done that. Now here's an important portion. We need to make a environment file for our passwords. So this is what you would normally keep your secrets for Pusher, these types of things, or any password for your database. Let's go over here, and I've got a little example file for us to use. So this part is important. This is going to be your IP. So my IP is 45.55.44.186. You're going to use your IP. I'm going to go ahead and go to 45.0. Let's do 45.54. 45.03. It does, the port doesn't matter, but just remember it. That's going to be our Elixir client when we finally get there. The key, not really using it. The secret is what's, remember this. So whatever you set up for your secret, you need to remember, I'm going to use my secret because that's how we're going to be doing authentication later. So this is your Rails port, and I'm going to do 4504. So Rails is going to talk to Elixir, but in lesson 3, we're in lesson 2. So we've got that going, .env. All right. Let's go ahead and fix our git ignore file. We need to go ahead and just make sure that the passwords aren't in there, right? Just put that in there. And the initializers. So Rails initializers start up when Rails starts up. We need to tell Rails to build all of the assets upon startup. And this is, normally wouldn't have to do this, but because we're doing some tricky things with JavaScript to talk between 2 frameworks, we got to do it. So we've got that. What else here? We need another initializer to make things easy for us. under here, I'm going to create a file called PusherLite RB, and we're going to fill that up with something to make things easier for us to grab the secrets and things like that within Rails. So we got that going. Let's see what else. Now we grab the route. Now we have to fix the route. So we made a landing page, but we never ever pointed anything to it. Now we need to do that. So under the config directory, it's going to be just 2 lines. So we've got our post and we've got our landing page. We need both of those to be open to the universe there. And then now we've got our, let's try our Rails command. So I'm going to run, you probably need to run this in a brand new session. Unless you're familiar with tmux and have windowing, but so you can do another completely different SSH to run your Rails command. But I'm going to go ahead and do a there we go. I'm going to go ahead and do it in this window down here, and let's see if we get any errors. Looks like it's running port 4504. I'm going to come over here and what is that? I think I got this here. 4504. Let me refresh and see if we're going. Yep. So that's that. I'm going to open up. I'm going to do look at the. I'm using Chrome. I'm going to look at the debugging tools. Look at the network, and let's go ahead and see if our post works. It looks like it works. And then I come down here to this log, and you can see that the pusher event is there. So that's lesson 2. I'm going to stop here for a little bit and ask for any questions. We got about, I want to go through pretty quickly, so we got about 5 minutes.
All right, so what do you guys think so far? Any questions? I've been trying to commentate a little bit in the chat box.
Oh, okay. All right. If we don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and start the rest because we've got a lot to cover. For lesson 3, I'm going to go ahead and go out of them and come back in. So I have all my windows proper. All right. So README. Now we're on lesson 3, step 1. We need to go back directory down here, and then we're going to go ahead and create a new Phoenix application here. All right, and go ahead and tell it to install its dependencies. We went ahead and did that. It's going to be called EX Pusher Lite. It's important. First order of business. Okay, let me refresh over here. Now we can see our new Elixir application. We've got this git ignore, which has nowhere near enough stuff. So lesson 3, let's grab this git ignore. I'm just going to put everything in here because there's lots of things that we just don't want to go in the git, including our passwords. So we got that going. All right, so let's go ahead and we're in PusherLite. We did the git ignore. Now it's time for mix. So we're going to upgrade Phoenix, and then we're going to include some new dependencies for mix. So mix is basically like a combination. If you're familiar with Rails, it's like a combination of the gem file and kind of like a proc file. It tells you here what all things need to be running as processes that are Elixir processes. Elixir, our language, is very particular or very explicit about the processes and what needs to be running beforehand and all that, and it manages all that for you. And then here's all the dependencies. So we're about to run all of that stuff or pull it all down. Right, so the command to compile things, Elixir is a compiled language, is mix do deps plural get, right? And then that pulls everything down. That's a dependency, and then a compile. All right, once doing that, I'm going to go ahead and look at the devsecret file. We need to go ahead and see here. We need to modify the port. We want to change the port, be able to change the port at the command line. So we need this line here. I'm going to comment out that 4000, and this allows us to. This line allows us to do something from the command line. Provide a port. Let's see here. We've got if you're interested in all the commands you can do at the command line for Phoenix, it's at that URL there. So let's go ahead and make a new controller after we're done compiling here. Should be just a little bit longer. All right, so now we're going to make a new controller that just serves JSON out. So the controller, for people who are not familiar with Rails or Elixir, it's an endpoint API. Right? So we don't want to, we're not doing anything with a database today. So we went ahead and put some options on there to avoid doing that. Hold on here. Okay, bring this back up. All right, so now we want to modify the endpoint that we just made. Everything's, or most of the code in Elixir is under this web directory. So controllers, we got events controller. It's got a lot of generic code, mostly for handling database connections, updates, this type of thing. We don't need all that. So we are just going to have a create that handles a post from the from Rails actually. So we have that going. Now we need to point our router towards our new endpoint, right? So let's grab that. It's under the web directory. And the first thing, we want to take off the CSRF stuff. We're going to use JWT Tokens instead of CSRF. And let's go ahead and add our new endpoint, which is events here. So we got that going. Now we need to do our WebSockets, which in Phoenix is called channels. So actually, I'm going to copy it here. So we're going to create a channel called room. That's going to create under this channel directory, it's also going to create a user socket. That's a WebSocket. WebSockets are how we do pub sub or pushing things to the front end onto a client browser and all these things. So to open that up, we need to tell it about our new channel. So we have this generic code, which is all good except for this line. So we're going to point to our channel. Let's go ahead and take a look at our new channel. Right, so this is what generates out by default, but we want to do some things with public channels. We're just going to do a broadcast. So I'm going to grab all of this, and you can see how it talks about that your your topics and everything like that. The way that you connect is going to be called public, not room. So you have that. Now let's do a mixed compile, see if we blew anything up. We rarely do everything perfect the first time, right? Or do we always? Yep, I guess we did it perfectly. So now let's go and manage our secrets. Close that. Let's close the Elixir, and now we're going to go back into Rails. So we need to update our secrets file to make sure we have access, which is under, you can see it right here. So normally it creates a hash by default, and we just use that, but we're going to be grabbing things from our environment file. So under lesson 3, under config, secrets, we really just want to grab things from the environment file here. I'm going to put it under development, testing, and production, but we're just using development today. Right. And now we need to create, okay, let's go ahead and update our events. So under our plain old Ruby object, we need to make it a little bit more advanced now to call Elixir. So we're going to pull in our way of doing posts with HTTP, acquire those libraries, and we're going to do the save here. And this just goes ahead and says, well, call Elixir with your messages. Okay, so this is replicating the idea of a legacy Rails app that normally you would either do a call to pusher, you save the database, save to use Sidekick and save the Redis or something like that. And now you're going to be using Elixir instead. Right, so we've got that done. Now let's create a background job. So the thing within Rails is if you want something to not block, right? So that means just not wait for an answer, and I just was in the wrong directory here. I want to go in this pusher directory. You need to create a background job. So this is how you do that. You're going to have something called send events under app, jobs, send events. That's a generic. Let's go ahead and grab what we want to use, which is under here, right? So pusher event save, we're all good as far as doing the background job. Call, and now we need to actually call it. So let's open up our events controller where we used to do this generic JSON. We're actually going to call this background job and return the answer. So the background job, again, it doesn't block. That means that it can be an instant call. So we can set up Rails to be really fast for that, or any service to be really, really fast for that. So it's a fire and forget, and then it sends a message to Elixir. So now back to the README, and we are ready to try to run our Elixir code. So I'm going to go ahead, go into our Phoenix Elixir command. Let's go ahead and see if this is all good here. KIX, what is it, list. We'll see, are we connected? We're connected. Let's see if we can get in. Yeah, looks like it's all good. Let's go ahead and try to run. We got to change this port. Remember, I set my port to 4503, I believe. So I don't need this environment file portion. Let's do that. And it looks like it's running. Right? Just started running. So what's next here? Then we need to go ahead and do Rails. Let's just kill it. Let's start it again. And let's see what happens. So come over here. I'm going to refresh my front end. And let's see if I do the broadcast message. I got a 500, so something blew up. Let's see what it was. So it's saying that see here. The perform is not there. That looks good. Send events. Did I save that? Yep. Let's see here. Save this, push event, everything's named properly. And let me see that error again. All right. So what does it say? 45, 55, 40, 44, 186. Is that the right? 186, 45, 55, 44, 186, 4504, and 4503. Did I name it properly? Did I give it the right port? I did the wrong port there. See that? Just change that. And everything happens for a reason, right? So now let's come over, broadcast message. It's still compiling over there. All right, I got a 200. So that means our message came from over here. We received from a message in Rails, sent it on to the job. You can see the message where it says JKL, JI. And then we received it over here in Elixir. So that is the totality of lesson 3. You guys have any questions? We're about to get to the good stuff where we can broadcast everything. We just hit a 25-minute mark, so.
Nice. So he's right now he's connected. So the legacy Rails application has chat functionality now. Chat functionality with the Elixir Phoenix app, but you just can't see it on the front end yet. And so we'll cover that in the next lesson. But
yeah,
you know, programmatically it's working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, many
victories. You guys can connect to this IP address and port if you're just following along, and you can see what we're doing there. And we should be able to see, everybody should be able to see everybody's messages when we get it working after the next lesson.
Yep, if you, whoever Pat is, Pat Mix Match, if you looking on the, if you look at the go to training now, you can see a message in the bottom right hand corner. The blue is Elixir, Phoenix, and right under that is Rails. And so it came in through Rails, and then Rails sent it to the Phoenix application. So see it come in.
Yeah, the Phoenix application is acting like Pusher. So instead of you paying them, you have your own for whatever reasons. Security, performance, whatever it's going to be.
Cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long-term cost. Yeah.
Long-term cost. Yeah, I'll give it another couple minutes because I know I'm going super fast. And then I'm going to continue the brain dump. After this next lesson, we'll have a full Pusher clone, and then we're going to talk about authentication, which is where people normally get stuck. You can have something that works well, and then you can't use it in a corporate setting or something serious because there's no authentication, and you find out that that stuff is hard. You really need to be using solid things that other people have already built. Fortunately, we have some of that. We have that already for you. So your manager that says, no, it's not secure or whatever, you can say, well, we can do this. All right. I'm going to start another 25-minute timer and go on to the next. All right. I'm going to close Vim. And I'm going to come on over here and open up our lessons. We got the README going. Now we're going to lesson 4. And that's one of the reasons why this is kind of a difficult thing to do, and bridging any two frameworks together for whatever reason is, you know, the glue that you need. This is kind of a glue lesson. So Rails out of the box doesn't want to use ES6. We got to make it use ES6. We got to make it use the Elixir WebSockets, JavaScript, and all stuff like that. So this is just really handling that portion. So under here, we got to use for the for Rails and the version of Rails and dependencies, we have to set up a bunch of files. One of them is a manifest file. Let's get it going here. So under lesson 4, I'm just going to grab that and put it under there. All right. So if you're familiar with Rails, it tells Rails what JavaScript to pull up. So now there's a weird, I want to say, bug with Rails where this application file, actually I opened up the wrong one first, but our application file here needs to look like this. It looks exactly like the manifest file. For some reason it just blows up, but we don't have it. So I'm including that too. Now let's go ahead and make a pull over the Phoenix JavaScript. So this is the JavaScript that comes with Phoenix. Phoenix is a web framework. So it has its own ways of doing front end and all that stuff, very similar to Rails, but it uses ES6. And for WebSockets, we need ES6, so we're going to have to pull that over and include it. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And you can see it's got a bunch of socket stuff, JavaScript stuff for sockets. That is a file that you should never have to modify. And then we'll go ahead and pull over this boot file. Goes under JavaScript, application, boot. All this is for setting up our, pulling in all of our JavaScript files and making sure it runs the transpiler, which we will see in a bit. Let's go ahead and make our index JavaScript file. It's going to be under application pages /home /index, /index.es6. This is what connects to our backend, our WebSocket that we provide from Elixir, our room channel that we created earlier. So we have that going. Now we need to set up Babel, which is a transpiler, translates ES6 into ES5 and a bunch of other things into ES5 as well. So it'll be under config, initializers. We gotta go ahead and make this file. So Babel.rb. Let's pull this on over down here. This just configures Babel to change things from ES6 or other things into ES5, which the browser understands. So now we got to get our gem file. This is where we tell Rails to use the latest and greatest leading edge Babel Sprockets, Asset Pipeline, Magic. So I'm going to go ahead and grab everything between. I'm going to grab almond rails, and I'm just going to have all this stuff commented out. Let's see here. So everything from SQLite all the way down to just above the Babel compiler. Pull that in, and I'm going to do a bundle update. I'm going to kill this over here, bundle update here. I have to do bundle update because we're going to update specific versions, and we're actually running against master on some of these dependencies. So, all right, so we did that, and we should now be able to start the server again. And then if we go over to 45, and let's go ahead and refresh the Rails app. All right, I'm going to go in the console. See, this means that we connected to a WebSocket. So if anybody else is here, you can actually should be able to see my messages. So that broadcast it should broadcast to anybody who's connected. So if you go to 45, 55, 44, 186, and port 4504, we should all be able to see each other's messages, and that's what Pusher does. So you can use, remember, you can use this type of thing for monitoring or sending messages between all your users. That's kind of the trivial one. The presence is a big thing. So when you go into, like say, your whole virtual reality movement, if you are in a certain environment, one of the big things now is to interact with your environment, and then new information, you change the environment, or when the environment changes, you get messages. So lots of users in one environment or multiple environments can have some type of aggregate effect, and trying to send that to everyone, you need the 2 million connections, like I'm saying. So this is really, that's the more advanced use for this type of thing, but it's easy to show with this. So this, at this point, you have a Pusher clone. It's good to go. Now we can go ahead and power through, because we got 16 minutes in this next 25. So let's go ahead and power through and try to get the JWT tokens working. I'm going to give a description of JWT here, or we can try to understand some of it. So if you haven't been playing with JWT tokens, it's a way to do authorization, right? But not all of the authentication, right? You can't get a username and password with JWT, but you can say that this token has information inside of it that anybody can read, and you can verify that it was correct. That's useful because you can say, and so you use it for passing around between microservices for one, right? You can use it just for saying if somebody owns it, has this token, you can do, there's properties there. But we're using it for authorization, and we don't have the authentic, like if we were to set up within Rails, you set up device, take username, password, whatever, you're fine there. But then normally you would use a session, right? And some type of hash to pass around and say I'm logged in. Well, we replaced that with the JWT token, and you can handle all kinds of things. You handle how this stuff, JWT is smart about how it gets encrypted. It can encrypt in multiple different ways. You can hold what's called claims, so you can put expirations inside of it, all that type of thing. And it knows how to work with secrets and all that stuff, so the spec is all very simplified. And so people are using them. It's become very popular, especially between between like microservices and things like that. So we ended up having to spend a bunch of work on trying to get this part to work so that we can do the security between each piece. So let's go ahead and start here. So I'm going to go ahead, go into Rails. I'm in Rails here, so I'm going to create a helper for Guardian. Guardian is what manages JWT tokens in Rails. So under app, we got, go down here, actually. Okay. So we just created a generic helper here. This is what is, you use this to populate HTML, that type of thing. So this is going to manage all of our JWT building of the token, creating some type of meta tag, putting it in our HTML. We can use this to do all that stuff. All right, so we generated that. Now we're going to have to modify our little workhorse, the pusher event. So now we want to include a token, right? JWT token. So let's see what that looks like. So we got some JWT code here, and then also the token itself getting passed in the HTTP request right here. So this is what it looks like in a header. You say authorization and bearer, and then you put the token, and then you're gold as far as compliance to that JWT specs. So now let's go to our, let's see here, we want to enable JWT. Oh. Here we go. So in here, we're going to start on our Rails front end. We're now going to start passing the JWT token from the front to the WebSocket. So we're using JWT to talk to the WebSockets or authenticate. So we got this. Let's see here. Let's get our mix. So now we're going over to Elixir. We've got everything in Rails going. So for Elixir, we need to modify and include Guardian, which handles the name of the same library, but in Elixir, it handles JWT. Pull that over here. Let's get the config files to point to all of our configure Guardian. Let's see here. So I want to grab Jokin and Guardian, pull it on over wherever it's fine. And we've got everything configured there for Guardian. Now we want to go ahead and create a dev secret, which goes under config. This is where we put sensitive information. So if you remember, what did I make my secret? I literally made it my secret. There are ways to generate out a safe, secure key within Guardian, but making this easy today. And we need to go ahead and call our secret file. And the whole reason why we do that, remember, is so we don't include it in source control. And so let's go ahead and compile this thing to make sure that we're not blowing anything up. And while that's going, let's go ahead and edit our router. Looks like we compiled fine. So now we're going to include our JWT token check within what's called a pipeline in Elixir. Elixir, the way it works, and Elixir in general, and Phoenix, it works as, you can think of it as just the philosophy is just transforming data. So you have some data, you apply a function, and you transform it into some other data. Well, when you're thinking of a web service, any type of website, any type of web call, you've got the headers, the payload, all that stuff, and then you transform it all the way into something that you might send back, which might just be a 200, or stats go to 200. It might be JSON, whatever. But that's the whole idea. So pipelines are a way to transform. So we're going to include this pipeline here, and then it's going to look at the header and say, hey, do you have a proper JWT token? If not, go away. And that's what we're doing here. So we're telling it anything that comes to slash browser guardian, go ahead and check and make sure that it's correct. And we even wrapped it around our events. So portion from Rails, so even Rails has to obey. Now, let's go ahead and go into our events controller, and we're going to just put security all throughout this thing. So we're going to grab these two lines, and so this use, so anything that comes into events controller, it's going to try to make sure that it has a proper JWT token in the authorization bearer format of the header, right? And then inside of our create, it gives us the ability to look at the user and the claims and all that stuff from the JWT token. It does that for us. Let's go ahead into our user socket. We're going to be pedantic about this and put it everywhere. So in our channels, we got the user socket. Let's go ahead and do it again. It's going to check again. So you can do it over there. You can do it over here too. And for our room channel, we've got a lot of code here. So what we want to do for our room channel now is we included this permit topic. So what we could do inside of our JWT token is a little confusing. You have a part that's encrypted, you have a part that's really just encoded, and anybody can look at it, but anyone that has the key can verify that it was constructed properly by the right owner. So what that allows you to do is anyone can look and say, hey, what are the proper topics, right? And so that's one of the things that that we're doing here, right? So a permitted topic, the claims portion, we're going to go ahead and get the claim out of the JWT token, and then say, okay, this topic. So if we're going to say, if you wanted to put something on there that stopped people from talking about nefarious things, you could have a whitelist in there or whatever, right? But it's not necessarily sensitive information, but you don't want somebody on the front end saying, well, I want to talk about nefarious topics, so I'm going to put it in there. We'd be able to check that this import would work, and all of our Guardian checks would work, and wouldn't allow that. All right, so we got our room channel going, and
one thing.
Go ahead.
I just want to add one thing to that. most importantly, in order for that to work, as far as that verification and to be able to read it, is that secret that we set for the Phoenix app and the Rails app. They have to be the same. If not, then the verification isn't going to work out. And so that's like the most important part as far as that authentication between these two applications and verifying the token.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I just wanted to add that while we were talking about it.
So, yep, this is correct. Thanks for that. And then we've got this Guardian serializer. What this does is it'll go ahead and check. It'll say, oh, you're authenticated. Oh, you're this user. Let me go ahead and pull up and unserialize everything from the database about this user. It's really just a utility function. So we got that going, and let's go ahead and restart Phoenix. That's compiling. Didn't get any blowups. Let's restart Rails. Rails sometimes won't even complain. So what will happen now is we should get an error that we're not authenticated. All right, so we do get to see. So the WebSocket now will not let us in because we don't have a token. See that Guardian token undefined, and it says go away. So it will not let us talk to the backend. Now, let's go ahead and enable that. Under layouts, we want to add our Guardian tokens from the helpers that we made. Which is just this one line right here. So this is the helper. Put our Guardian tokens in there. So when Rails refreshes, it'll have some Guardian tokens with the bearer and the header when it sends it. So we're going to take a look. We joined. We're looking. And it looks like the WebSocket's not complaining anymore. So I should be able to send something, and I can. And we come over here. Of course, we see the messages. We see that the pipeline is going through Guardian there. And of course, Rails, like how we were saying. So there goes a completely authenticated pusher clone, and you could pay whatever, $600 a month and serve 2 million users. That is it.
Nice. We did it.
Yeah. You guys have any questions, let me know.
Now, we saw some questions come in with as far as about security, like how the authentication is working. And so if you didn't see in the chat, basically what's going on here is so there's no authentication on this front end to submit the message, right? We're assuming that we're already logged into your application, or you trust the open web, anyone can submit a message.
We love it.
We started this. We did this talk for us to connect Elixir Phoenix to handle your chat, and so all this is the purpose. It's just a form, but the chat is handled by Phoenix. And so whereas authentication would be nice on this front end, once this is submitted, once you match broadcast message, that's when it goes through. And when it's on the way to Phoenix, that's when it hits that little authentication barrier. And so the service, your microservice that actually handles your chat, is protected through to the level that it came from your Rails app, not by user or anything like that, but by Rails application. And so, yeah, you want to add anything to that, Watson?
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So we would use, if you had a Rails application and you did your authentication normally, you would just take you would go to Pusher, you get a Pusher secret, and you would say, hey, and you take your JavaScript that Pusher has right on their landing page or whatever configuration. It's like a one-liner, really simple. And you have your keys, and you post the Pusher, and it's smart enough to know, okay, this was from this application, this owner, I'm going to allow it through. And that's what we're doing, right? So you wouldn't be able to post to our service without having the proper keys and all that stuff like that. All right.
Right.
So regardless of, if you made this exact same Rails application, you could have it post to Pusher with no we didn't have anyone sign up or anything. And Pusher would let us do it, and it would know that it was our Rails app that was posting to Pusher, and so it would allow it. And it would rate limit us and all that stuff. So all we did was do a drop-in and do the same to a Elixir service.
One last point about the last break, I mentioned that the most important part was the secret. I didn't really explain why that was the most important part. And so essentially the secret, when you're dealing with JWT tokens, the secret is needed to read the signature. JWT token is split into 3 different parts. I'll just speak about the last part right now, and it's a signature, and that's, you can decrypt that signature if you have the correct secret. Just think public and secret keys for security. But if you have that secret, you can decrypt that signature, and then you can see, is this verified? And so what happens is the secrets, both applications having the same secret is important because the JWT token is generated on Rails with a secret, and you need that same secret to decrypt the signature. And so we put that same secret on the Phoenix application when we decrypt it, and so that made that possible. It wouldn't have been possible doing it this way without them both having the same secret. So I see T is asking about, so where's the security flaw in doing it this way? Do you see any, do you want to speak to that, Watson?
No, it's foolproof. Make sure you put that out on the internet too. You can't break this.
Yeah.
We'll put your name.
Yeah, right. I mean, so assuming that, we're gonna ignore the fact that this front end is not locked down, right? But the as far as security flaw with the authentication we have set up, the JWT flow that we're using a tool called essentially the auth library to handle the JWT on Phoenix is called Guardian, and JWT is Watson has it up in the go to training now, but it's been around. JWT came into popularity with the rapid popularity of JavaScript front end clients and needing to do authorization and authentication with those. The web is talking about them like crazy, and they're very useful. As far as secure on the back end, I don't know any. You have to ask a security guy. I mean, it's pretty secure, but you have to ask a security guy to poke holes through it.
Yeah.
I will.
It's the RFC out there, so you guys can, the security for it, you can use different algorithms, and it's smart about which one you provide. So the one I'm using, Elixir won't let you use 256, but 256 I guess already has, it's questionable. HMAC 256, there's HMAC 512, all these other ones. There's asynchronous keys like public, private. There's all kinds of ways that you can do it. You can make it insecure by using an insecure algorithm, and you can make it more secure by using one that's more secure. Right? So there we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't share your secret with anyone.
Yeah. So when I was saying before, it's a weird thing about talking about authentication and authorization. Authentication, if you go ahead and what's authenticated in our app? With the Rails server. The Rails server is authenticated to talk to Elixir. That's what's authenticated. And then so it says, hey, you know, I create this token for you. You can talk to Elixir, right? And then it can do that, and you are allowed to do that. But it doesn't. Obviously, it doesn't do username, password, or whatever. You've got to do all that in order to. That's another part of authentication, which is the trivial part that everybody knows about. So.
Yeah, that's why I posted the AAA authentication authorization, and I think auditing is the last one. I think that's what I posted.
Accounting. Yeah.
Accounting, yeah.
So we're all good
And
here. This link will tell you everything about the simplicity of this and the reason why people use it. They've got a comparison between JWT and SAML here on the bottom. They're like, here's ours, here's yours. See, why would you want to do that? But you know, it's kind of one of the reasons. But there you go.
Well, we thank you all for coming out and doing this presentation.